strawberries.
Eating what?
Eating discounted strawberries.
Yes.
Strawberries are a great deal right now. $2.99 a carton.
Well, you go to the Costco and the strawberries like this big now. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
they must be working out in the gym these days.
Those big GMO strawberries.
Oh yeah, I'm definitely going to die like 15 years younger after eating 2 cartons of those a day for multiple years. It's taken something off my life for sure. So
You can't pass up on them.
this is my buddy Brayden Olafson. That's I'm pronouncing that right?
You got her. Yes, sir.
All right, Brayden Olafson with Puck Preps, Eastern Canada. I will drop a little link. This is going on our YouTube, Brayden, just letting you know. This will go, the information, Puck Preps, Eastern Canadian or Eastern Canada. I'll put all that stuff, the links in the description below, guys. So definitely check that out. One of the best and most really comprehensive lists that you're going to find on Quebec League draft and anything coming up, anything prospects. Check these guys out for sure. Thanks for doing this with us. How about we just go over our first 5 picks in this draft, and then we'll talk a little bit about some sleepers and maybe go with a guy that you like from the CSR draft list, B's and C's and D's and so on. And then we'll let you go to the Mem Cup game. Who do you got tonight? Mem Cup game, Shawinigan and Edmonton. Who you got?
Probably Edmonton. It's been a bit of a water cooler discussion at work today, but I'm thinking Edmonton. I think they've got a pretty wicked lineup through and through, right from Gooley, Sortif. Gunther's out. That's a big loss for them. Sounds like he's got a banged up knee, but I think they've certainly got the depth. They've got some young players bringing up the bottom of their lineup too, and I think they're going to be dangerous throughout the whole tournament.
Yeah, I mean, Edmonton have been good all year. I mean, they've been a top 5 ranked team all year. Shawinigan seem like they're just on a bit of a heater right now. I mean, after beating Quebec, it's like they got that adrenaline high from beating Quebec, and they're kind of in a position where I thought it was going to be Quebec City or Charlottetown all year, but they still have some guys that can win you a game. And they got Bourgault and they've got Bork and a few of those guys at Nadeau. They got some guys there that have had really good playoffs, and they're probably going to carry right into the Met Cup.
Yeah, you can't take anything away from Shawinigan, Bourgault and Bork and Nadeau. I mean, all together. But certainly I'm always really infatuated with Bourgault, and I think he's the guy who can steal a game, not totally independently, but he can do some pretty wild stuff on his own too if he wants to.
Man, I was really liking him in the World Juniors too until the tournament got shut down. I was like, man, this guy can skate. He's got some talent. Like, just really fluid in his motion. Like, really, you know what, this guy here, I think he could be a good NHL player in the future. But that's another discussion for another time. Let's talk Q Draft. We've got the Q Draft coming up July 4th and 5th, live on Fenplast. Check that out on YouTube and check that out on the QMJHL.ca. I think this draft here, looking at the overall complexion of it, especially the top 5 picks, there is a same kind of situation last year where you had Tyler Peddle, who was like, maybe he might go. We don't know what he's going to do. USHL, is he going to go the Canadian side? And I feel like the same kind of situation this year where we've got Sacha Boisvert, who is in the top 5 discussion, who is, tendered to Muskegon. What are you thinking on that?
Yeah, I really keep trying to convince myself that there is a good chance he could report to the right team. And I think the right team is critical in that. I'm not sure what his personal preferences are. I think the tender brings in a bit of a different element where in Tyler Peddle's case, obviously his doors were open across the board, and he didn't really have that tender agreement in place. I'm not sure if, I can't recall the last player, and I'm still relatively new to the USHL tender policy, but I've done quite a bit of digging on it. Anyways, I would think it's fairly straightforward if he wanted to get out of it, but what I could almost see happening with Boisvert is that he could get picked by a team that he's committed to in the queue, maybe go play a year for Muskegon, and then come up to the queue, depending on how things go down there. But there could still be a number of teams who maybe he's not fully committed to, who see the potential with him, and they think, well, we're going to steal this guy from under someone's nose, and we're going to just cross our fingers and hope it works out. I think he's worth that for some teams.
Yeah, and this, when we start talking our top 5, I've got a kind of a strategy in my head as to what is going to happen with Boisvert. So let's go. I'm going to go with my number 1 overall pick right away. Then we'll go at you. My number one overall pick is different than what I think yours is going to be. And I'm going with Lavoie. I'm personally speaking, Thomas Lavoie, I think that he's got a ton of talent. He kind of reminds me, I've heard some colleagues say, like a Drew Doughty comparable. Like, he's big, he's long, he's got a great shot. He's got that right build. He's a righty. And Cape Breton were terrible on the defensive side of the puck. I think they gave up 50 more goals than the next closest team. So, like, they really struggled. And it wasn't goaltending. It was just flat out poor defensive coverage. Because, I mean, they got two good young goalies there. I don't think you can put it on them. I think it's just overall they don't play good defense. And adding a guy like that, a PPQB, and a guy that can play minutes, I think is a good fit for them. What do you think?
Yeah, as far as fit goes, in the mock draft that we put together a couple of weeks ago and released yesterday, we also had Thomas Lavoie going first overall to Cape Breton. I agree with you. I think it's a great fit. All of the forwards that are available and would be in consideration for first overall, I think they all have defensive elements to their game in some respect. There's some that I might pick on a little bit more than others, but none that really have the full defensive capacity that could plug those holes the way that a real defenseman, a real natural defenseman would playing defense. I think with a team like Cape Breton, certainly, like you say, they need to fill their defensive gaps. Sometimes I would consider a forward to be a player who could do that just as well as a defenseman and also provide some offense as well. I don't think that type of a player is available in this class, so I think Lavoie is definitely the right pick. He's not the player that we have ranked first on our rankings. We do have Boisvert ranked first on our rankings. So I don't think he's necessarily the guy that Cape Breton's going to take a swing on. I think Lavoie seems to be the right fit. And the other guys that I've heard mentioned as potential first overall picks wouldn't be the guys I would see filling those defensive gaps.
And I really like Lavoie's skating. He's got a nice skating stride, and he's also smart. And I saw a lot of that at the Q Cup. You're like, okay, that's a really smart play, smart defensive play. I don't think he's a pure play offensive guy. I think he can do a little bit of everything, and having the right build to be able to play a major junior schedule and playoff, I think that's a good pick for Cape Breton. They do have two in the first round, and maybe they go forward a little bit later if there are some guys that are ranked in the middle of the first that I like that they could take. Or maybe they go with another defenseman. Who knows? But we will see. I think Lavoie is the pick there. So let's kind of move into the second overall pick. And this is where it gets interesting for me because I look at Victoriaville and I say their goaltenders, I don't think they have a guy there that they really, really like. And then you can tell that by the draft positions. Dig is the best goalie on the board. He's a great athlete. He is big. He's 6'2", I think 6'2", 195. He's got the right build. And I don't think there's been a hype around a French goalie in a long time since this guy here has a lot of hype around his name. He played well at the Q Cup. You can see the athleticism. You can see the passion. And you can see a guy, maybe this is the guy that Hockey Canada hangs their hat on and says, this is going to be our World Junior guy. This is going to be someone that we want to be the next Quebec guy because let's be honest here. Canada, if you look at Olympic roster, you look at some of these rosters, you're like, where are the top flight goalies? They're all in Europe. Hopefully that this is a guy that we can kind of say, okay, let's get behind him. What do you think of Dag at number 2?
Yeah, I completely support you there as well. I think he's an anchor for any team, or could be an anchor for any team. And I fully support you on the concept of Hockey Canada, right from Holinka days right through to World Juniors. And as far as he wants to go in that respect, I think I mentioned like a stylistic comparable of Andrei Vasilevsky on one of our recent videos, and I mean that's to be taken lightly, of course, because direct comparisons, especially with goaltenders, is a tricky, slippery slope. But similar to Vasilevsky, what Dag does so well is cover the bottom of his net. Like, he is a box on the bottom of the net. You put a wall up over the bottom half of the net, I think, and he basically shuts the door down there. I've seen goals go through his legs on occasion, but by and large, like there's not too many guys who are able to square up on their post so well for wraparound attempts or for side attempts and that sort of thing, and hold his post nicely, and then stay as a pretty large presence in the middle of the net when the puck squirts out and really eat it up. And that's not to say that he's got holes up top either. He he keeps his arms stable and his shoulders nice and rigid, outstretched, and is able to catch a lot and block a lot with his upper body as well.
Yeah, I think he's a good athlete. You can kind of tell by the way he moves in the net. Sometimes he almost over moves at times. And I'm thinking to myself, like, man, that's an athletic guy in the net. And for a big boy to have that kind of athleticism and that kind of build, I think the Big Cat is a pretty good player, comparable there for sure. And Tampa coming back there, last night, Game 3, that was a big response for a Stanley Cup two-time defending champion team. I think there's going to be more of the same in Game 4, especially when Brayden Point starts to get his legs back underneath him. The first 2 games, he looked like a beer league player because I think he's injured. But, I mean, He's an incredible player. That's kind of an engine when he's playing a little bit better. Then their stars get going, and they get that home crowd and that beautiful warm weather there in Florida. They are a different hockey team. So let's move on to number 3, and this is where I see Boisvert going. And the reason why, not only because he's a very good player, I like him as a two-way forward. He's got offensive skill. He's got the right build. He can move the puck. I think he can play a top 6 center role. He's got the right build for that position. I think he skates well enough, and he's got some skills. He can be a PP guy. He can control the game at the level he's playing at now. Was a good player for Mount St. Charles this year. And it seems like Muskegon really like him because in their camp there a week or 2 ago, roughly, he was playing first line, but he was on the wing according to their line charts. Maybe that's just facade. I don't know. But, they like him, obviously. If he's right on the very top, you're thinking, okay, they really want him in their lineup. But Shawinigan have 4 picks in the first. And if you're going to throw a dart at the board and say, well, if we're going to take a stab at a player, why not take a stab at Boisvert? Because we still got 3 picks in this round. We're going to get 3 good players that are more sure things that are going to show up and compete for us. But, let's take the best player available here and go with Boisvert. And, if it doesn't come, he doesn't come. We get the pick next year, and we take those 3 firsts, and we make sure that those are guaranteed guys that are coming in and going to be here.
Yeah. Is it in fact Chicoutimi picking 3rd? For some reason I had it in my head that Baie-Comeau had their back-to-backs 3rd and 4th.
I think Baie-Comeau are 4-5. I'm 90.9% sure it's 4-5.
Yeah. Going on that basis, I could
check people. I got to go back and double check again. Listen, there's been a few times lately that I've caused some controversy with my mistakes. However, I'm pretty sure that Chicoutimi have 3 and it's Baie-Comeau 4-5.
These were the lottery picks, so they should be fairly well published, I think. So, I could see Chicoutimi potentially being that team. I don't know if I'm quite willing to stick my neck out on tying a team to Boisvert quite at this point yet. I'm going to have to wait and see how that one plays out. We actually, and this could be the controversy, but we had in our mock draft, I think we did have 3-4 chalked up to Baie-Comeau, but we had, and I think this would be a fair pick for Chicoutimi as well, very similar player in my opinion to Sacha Boisvert would be Elliot Letellier from the SSF Blizzard. And I've actually been quite infatuated with him since early in the year. And I think it was easy to cling on to him because right from the beginning of the year, he had size, he had power, and he had skill. And then throughout the year, I think you just came to see different layers and different elements to his game. He would go on stretches where, basically killing guys with his physical strength and then his willingness to forecheck and lay the body and dig pucks out behind the net. But also I think he's extremely skilled for a player his size already, controls his body so well. I think he's probably up in the 6'2" range. And, not selfish in the least bit. I don't think he's got the skill that he could charge to the net. He could make strong power moves to the net, but he's also really happy to share the puck around, utilize all of his outlets. And he's pretty keen, pretty acute with identifying guys in vacuums and identifying guys in holes, between defensemen and whatnot. So I think he's a player that I'm going to be, I'm going to kind of attach myself to for the next couple of years, watch how he develops in the queue. He's going to be a guy that I'm really, really excited about for the next couple of years. I think he'd be a good pick either for Chicoutimi or Baie-Comeau.
No, I think that's a really good choice. And I like him. I like the way he plays. He has a very mature game about him. He's a guy that can win battles in the net front. He plays in all zones. He's big. He's strong. He's got the build of a centerman. I don't think he has maybe the skill of Boisvert from watching him play. But I think that his floor is high. And when you're picking in those top 5, in those top 5, top 10, unless you got a barrage of picks in the first round, I don't know if I necessarily want to take a risk on a guy that might not be going, in Chicoutimi, or if you have 4 picks in the first, that's a different situation. But if you only have 1 pick or 2, you want to make sure you hit home runs, and at least bare minimum, the floor is he's going to be a good solid player in the league for, multiple years. L'Italien to me has a very safe floor because he's good defensively and he does a lot of things right. You can even see on the faceoffs, he's very mature. He goes in, talks to his wingers, talks to his defensemen. You're like, you know what? That's a sign of a real mature player. That's a sign of a professional player. And just little things like that he does that I noticed and I picked up on. I liked his game a lot at the Q Cup. I'm back in April, and I've liked him throughout the year. That organization's the Blizzard or Blizzard, or however you want to say it, they develop a lot of good players, and I think he's going to be the next one of that, that program's history, really, I guess, pipeline, so to speak.
Yeah. I think like I say, like towards the beginning of the year, his or at the beginning of the year and throughout the first quarter of the year, I think it was so clear that his individual skill set was at the top tier of this group. And then I started to see the things throughout the second half of the year that I didn't expect to see from him. And it was impressive to me how well he worked in a system, how well he worked with his teammates, how well he didn't take it always upon himself to do everything and be the center of attention. So that kind of solidified it for me, is just that he seems like he's like you say, a very mature player in a lot of respects.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I'm at with him. I have him at 5. So, but if he went at 3, I would not be upset with that. If he went at 2, I wouldn't be upset. If he went at 4, anything in the top 5 for me, I'm okay with him. I don't see him going outside the top 5. I think if he does, that is a humongous win for somebody that's picking at 6 or 7 or 8 that can land a player like him. I think, based on what I'm seeing, he's showed good leadership tendencies. Maybe he's wearing a letter at 18 or 19. Yeah. That's the type of, I guess, return you want on a pick of that nature. Now, sure. The next choice that I have at 4, this guy might be the most skilled player in this draft. But when you watch him, the first second you watch him, you're like, there's no possible way that this guy can be a great player. And then he's blowing around you and burying it in the shelf, is the kid Poirier. Now, I know, like, when I watch him play, and when you'll watch his brother tonight, when I watch this kid play, I'm like, in warm-up, you're like, okay, he's got crazy skill, but the edge work, he doesn't look like a hockey player. Like, he's a kind of smaller guy. He's a short, stocky kid. I've seen guys take runs at him, and they'd hit him, and they wouldn't move.
Bounce off like a, yeah.
And, like, he doesn't budge. They don't budge. He is solid on his boots. He can score, and he can fly for a little guy. You just don't see – it doesn't look like he's fast. He's very deceiving, and if you just look at him in his gear, you're like, this guy looks like he's, like, going to play junior B. And then he goes out, and he's got 3 goals, and he's got an absolute missile that can find that can pick corners, like, quickly. He gets it off his stick quickly.
Yeah. With his shot, the thing that always impresses me is that I've seen it on countless occasions where it doesn't really matter his body position. Like certain guys can shoot in warm up. They can rip a shot, a one-timer in warm up. No worries. When the puck's coming at it and they're queued up for it, they got their feet set. They're planted. They can get power on the shot, but most guys can do that. And what always impresses me with Poirier, especially for a guy his size, like he might be coming in at what, 5'8"? Might be
5'7", 5, anywhere between 5'7" and 5'9". There's no way he's bigger than that.
But he can shoot with an incredible amount of power and an incredible amount of accuracy off of 1 foot, off falling down in some cases, and he gets to the holes. So yeah, and like you say, of course, his speed is quite deceiving. He defies the laws of physics in terms of bigger defensemen coming at him or standing in front of him, and he'll just bounce off them. He'll roll out of it, and you don't find him on his butt too often. And that just contributes to the fact that he's always up back on his feet and back in position to score goals.
Yeah, I'm on board with that. Like he's just, and you're very right. There's those traditional warm up players that are, oh yeah, they look great. You can zing it and warm up, but then in the game, you're like, geez, you don't get a whole lot of pucks on net, or they just hit a lot of shin pads. This guy gets pucks to the net, and he can pick it up. And in tight space, he's good too. Like around the net, he's got quick hands. He's got good hands. He can find pucks in traffic. Like, to me, I think he might be the most skilled player in this class. To me, the player comparable for him is Will Shields. And I think there's a lot of similarities between the two guys. But I think based on who's selecting in that first top 5, it's a very, very quick Francais draft, you could say, in those top 5 picks. A lot of French teams going, I think they will Bécamo, or whoever it is, whether Chicoutimi or Bécamo, are going to go with a French player historically in the first round. I think that's probably the choice that they make.
Yeah, particularly if they're looking for an offensive guy, and if this is their first pick of the draft, they could easily go forward defenseman, and I think that could be a fit here. One of the guys I would consider maybe at 4th overall, if it doesn't end up being Poirier, is a guy that beginning of the year we had ranked 1st overall. It's Adam Fortier-Gendron. Just a really, really complete and, again, very mature defenseman. I don't think he has slid throughout the year. I just think he's remained quite stable, and we've got him ranked, I think, right now at number 4. I think that would be a good pick for Chicoutimi, a guy to stabilize the back end. Extremely composed, extremely skilled, can run a power play. And I mean, that would be I think that's a safe pick, and I think it's a high value pick at 4th overall as well.
All right, we're going to lay this to rest. And you're darn right, baby. AP1, Olafson 0. We've got Chicoutimi drafting at 3 and Bécamo from Val-d'Or at 4 and 5. So guess what?
It's settled.
It's an official document. That is not some website. That is the official, right from Pierre Ledoux.
Draft document.
Boom, boom, boom.
Last time on the podcast.
Right there. That is pump mode right there. All right. I got something right for a change. So that's it. But
good show.
Guess what? Nobody cares. So we're going to get into, now we're at number 5. So it is Bécamo's pick, and they've got back-to-back picks. Last year they take Vince Collard, who's a solid forward. They take Nathan Barry or Barrel, or however way you want to pronounce it. They've got 2 forwards. Now they say they take Poirier. Now you've got a potential line you can put together. You've got a young line you can build your organization around. Do you go with a defenseman here now at 5, or is this something where you're like, we'll take the best player available here now, or what approach do you think Bécamo would take here?
Well, not being as familiar maybe with their current roster configuration and what they're looking at as far as losing 20-year-olds, where they're at, I would think a forward defenseman split would be good here. At 5th overall, you're running out of top tier depth. I think as far as both positions go, and I don't know if they've got a 3rd pick in the 1st round, but I pretty much consider the top 9 to be a tier. So if you're picking inside the top 9 with 2 picks, I think if you can get a forward and a defenseman, you're getting 2 guys to kind of anchor both of those spots.
They don't own a pick,
3rd pick,
number 5. They just have the 2 back-to-back picks, and that's it. So, I mean, maybe that's a situation where they see this and they say, well, maybe we'll move down and acquire more talent, and we trade for 5. Maybe somebody really wants Quinn Kennedy. Maybe somebody is, really high on somebody. Maybe someone's real high on Will Shields. We know the Maritime teams do not have a whole lot of draft capital in this 1st round. It's mostly teams in the Quebec divisions, and maybe someone says, I'm going to move an active player. Maybe someone says I'm not in the running this year and I'm going to move somebody, so I can acquire more draft capital, and this moves into be Moncton, or maybe it moves into be St. John. St. John have always been known to wheel and deal at the draft table. They like to move picks around and move and shake. Maybe it's somebody that moves into that 5 spot. I had my 1st round was L'Italien going 5 with a Poirier at 4. and Boisvert at 3, just because Chicoutimi had so many picks to be able to swing and miss at this one, and then still be able to get lots of good players in this and still change their franchise, and then have 2 guys with Lavoie and Day going 1 and 2. Rest of the first round, I think, is pretty wide open. Like, it's going to be very, very interesting draft. I looked at this and said, like, well, like after number 5, I've got the Will Shields of the world, but there's some players here that are not ranked by the CSR in the first round that I could see going in the first round, like Bill Zonin. I really like Bill Zonin. I know you guys are high on him too. Let's talk Bill Zonin.
Yeah. So the thing with Bill Zonin, and this is something I've come to appreciate covering a lot of these events, so to speak, like not a lot of league coverage. That's what we've done in the States, and the USHL draft that I covered for Puck Preps last year. A lot of our evaluation was done at camps, and the players that stood out at camps turned out to be the players who are already having success in the USHL and have advanced and have continued to progress. And I think that is a testament. And I know, and you hear this argument, over World Juniors, you hear it over everything. But I think it's important to give credence to these events where there is best on best competition, and players are forced to either play outside of a structure and adapt, or forced to play with unfamiliar line mates and adapt, and show different levels of their game. And that's the other element of being at these events, is that sometimes guys play a certain system, they play a certain role on their club team, and then when they get into these events, they have to do something different. So you see a different layer of their game, a different level of their game. That was something I was really impressed with with Will Shields at the Q Cup. Saw some real strong defensive and offensive puck hounding acumen that wasn't clear to me with BK, and it's just something that turned me on to him even more at that event. But that was particularly the case with Bill Zonin. I thought he was. I might come right out there and say it. I thought he was the best player at the Q Cup event, and I think there would probably be arguments for other players. Lavoie would certainly be one of them, but Bill Zonin blew me away with his offensive intelligence. Always had a plan in place when the puck was off his stick. Always got himself to the right spots. Always able to act quickly when the puck got to him. And I said it about Quinn Kennedy. And it was the same sort of feeling I had about Zonin, was that they both made the players that they were playing with better. So, you pair like I can't remember who these guys were playing with, but I mean, I know in Kennedy's case, one was Connor Arsenault. Yeah. Arsenault throughout the rest of the tournament he was himself, but when you put him with Quinn Kennedy, he was a different player. He was on another level, and he had so much more of an impact.
I agree with that so much, Brady. Like, I couldn't agree with you more. And Arsenault in that last couple of days of the Q Cup just totally looked like a different player, because he had somebody to get him the puck in the right time. He didn't have to carry a line. Kennedy can carry a line, and Zonin can most definitely carry a line. I really like him. When he stepped on the ice and he's skating around, I'm like, man, that guy's got a wide skating stride. He's got some stuff to work on. But then when you start to watch him, he's got a great motor. He's got great hands. He does everything at top speed. He can change speeds, but he also knows where to go when he doesn't have it. A couple of goals, a nice give and goes in the offensive zone, or like a nice play where he went to the right place and the puck finds him. Like, to me, he's not a guy that just needs to carry it to be successful. He's a guy that can play off it and still put up numbers. Yeah, like, sign me up. I really like Zonin. I could see somebody like Halifax saying, you know what, we really like this guy. They are not afraid to go off CSR boards. They have their own board, it seems. Like last year, we had Logan Crosby ranked in the mid rounds. They go and take him 20th overall. Right. They have their own board, and that's, to me, what I think they are going to look at. They might take Zonin at 7. Now, I think Quinn Kennedy probably ends up there, but if he's gone, maybe that's what they're looking for. Maybe they're going to have to replace some forwards next year. Who's gone? They're going to lose some guys up front. I think they are anyway. So maybe that's the pick. Maybe they go off the board at 7. And they say, let's take this guy because we really liked him at the Q Cup. I did see all of their scouting staff at the Q Cup. So maybe that's a direction that they go. You just never know with them. And that's a guy I really like. And Marcus Kiersey's another guy. Got to throw a Newfoundlander a bone here in this chat, obviously. You guys have him at 9. I really like him somewhere in the, in the 9 to 15 range. I don't think a lot of people are as high on him as you and I are, but yeah, like let's talk Marcus Kiersey, good kid from the Deer Lake West Coast, the best coast region in Newfoundland. Let's talk a little bit about why you like him.
Yeah, so I think throughout the year we had Kiersey probably in that same range as the consensus, so to speak. I mean, a little lower, but again, it was that performance at the Q Cup event just elevated his game to the point where he seemed like he was among the top 3-4 puck moving defensemen. He's got room to grow, and I think that's just more potential for him. That's not a reason not to draft him. That's a reason to look up at him and think, geez, what can this kid do when he adds 3 or 4 inches and 30, 40 pounds, 20, 30 pounds, whatever it is. I don't know what he's at right now, 5'10" maybe. I think he's got room to grow.
145, 150, which is not really all that big. But when you watch him play, I'm like, he plays bigger than his vitals indicate. He doesn't mind throwing a hip check into somebody. He knows how to use his stick to his advantage, and he's pretty scrappy. So like, I'm not really looking at it saying like, you have a guy that's 145 and he really plays 145 where he can't win battles and he gets pushed off the puck and so on. I didn't see that at the Q Cup.
Yep. No, it doesn't hesitate either was the one offensive attribute of his, I think, or attribute that lended his game towards offensive success, was that there's just no hesitation. When there is an opportunity, he takes it, he exploits it, and he makes good on it. There was a lot of instances where, I think when I think about defensemen who are still developing, guys will grab the puck at the blue line, when they're making their pinch, and it will take them a second to decide what they're going to do with it. Is it going to be, a dump back in along the wall, or are they going to throw it towards the slot? What's going to happen with it? And Kiersey has so many technical elements to his game that he doesn't need to hesitate once he makes a decision. Some guys might feel that they don't have the skating to break in. Some guys might feel like they, don't have the puck placement to get a good shot in there for a deflection. But he does all that so well that once he identifies something, he's got the confidence programmed. It's second nature to him. If I'm going to skate it in along the wall, if I'm going to dump it in along the wall, if it's going to go to the crease, he can do it, and that just makes it so that he doesn't waste time, and more of those plays are successful because they happen in an instant before his opposition has the time to react.
All right, good, great description there for sure. Let's get outside the first round just for a quick little, like a very, very quick outside the first. Let's talk 3 players, any players in this draft that you would like to draft, like anybody. Let's kind of just, this is my last one. I know you want to go to that Men Cup game and you got to make yourself look real pretty before you go down to Harbor Station. So let's talk like 3 players that if they're on the board at that point in time, you are going to gobble them up and be very excited to have them on your roster come August. 3 guys and go.
Okay, so the first one that I feel quite strongly about that is not ranked highly by CSR Group is Hudson Clark of the Sydney Mitsubishi Rush. I think he's a sort of a light version of Justin Poirier in a sense. I think he's a little more fluid. You talk about Poirier not necessarily looking like a hockey player sometimes. I think Clark has a little bit more of that. There's certainly some roughness that he can work out, but I think he's a really good transition player, and he's got a little bit of an edge to his game in transition, similar to Poirier as well. And played on a kind of a mediocre team in the Nova Scotia League, but really contributed well for that team offensively throughout the year. Made a lot of offensive plays happen, drove offense for that team in a lot of cases, and I thought he had a pretty stable defensive game as well. He's quick, he's very fluid, he back checks relatively well. So all of that said, I think I put in his final scouting report on Puck Preps that if he's not taken by the 6th round, I'll eat my socks. I would consider upgrading that to the 5th round. If he's not taken by the 5th round, I would eat 1 sock maybe.
Wow. Like, are we talking like a sock right out of your skate, or are we like right out of your gym shoes, or are we just talking like a sock you wear in the house right after you washed?
I got some thick woolies on right now, so maybe a nice gym sock.
Yes, like an old white gym sock with
Sure.
coffee stain on it. Oh yeah, that's the one.
Been,
We'll hold
been
you to this, bro. We're literally gonna write you after the end of the 5th round. If Hudson Clark is still there, we are dropping you a line. Say, I want like let's do this Oscar the Grouch style. You're gonna have.
and we'll tag all the GMs too, because I won't be able to believe it.
That's what I want to see. That is spicy, my friend. Let's get your last two.
Elliot Oganowski is another guy. Certainly, I think again at the Q Cup. I don't mean to just be coming back to this all the time, but it's like I say, it's the final event of the year. It's where all the chips are on the table. These guys got to make something happen, and Oganowski probably a little under-evaluated. Almost isn't the most accessible place, of course. Maybe guys aren't making the road trip up there. I think at the Q Cup, he showed that he has just as much technical skill as a lot of guys that are ranked in the top 3 rounds, received a numerical ranking. And I think he did in the final CSR. I think he come in around 81. I think he could be a 3rd round pick. I'm not going to eat socks for him, but I think Oganowski is a player who could develop a really strong offensive acumen. Similar one of the ways I describe Quinn Kennedy all the time is that he's got a really, really heavy toolbox of, he's got all the technical skill in the world, but he doesn't feel like he needs to use it all the time. And I think that's kind of the same as Oganowski. Not at the same level, of course, but, he's a player that probably flew under the radar for a lot of the year. And I think if a team can grab him in the 3rd round, they're sneaking up on people.
All right. Well, like you've already got enough dye to polyester in this. You may have a dye to polyester in this coming draft. July 4th, July 5th, I can't wait to write you, bro, if that is not the selection. It's happening, and it's going straight on social media, too, for a laugh. Anyway, last but not least, Oganowski, personally, good choice. Next one.
Okay. Last one, number 3, and a little bit of a conflict here, maybe. Same case with Bill Zonin. If Matty Butler is there right around the spot where he's ranked, I've been a fan of his all year. And, I think a lot of your supporters would agree with me there. Dynamic player for his size, doesn't play like he's 5'5" or 5'4", plays like he's a through and through strong centerman. And I think, with a little bit of added size, he could fill in a good supplemental role. He again, forechecks hard, back checks hard, just has a really complete game. And I don't think size should be the knock on him that keeps him out of the top 5 rounds.
Love it. I think that is pretty impressive. I swear we never talked about this before. I promise to anybody who's like thinking, oh, these guys are in cahoots or something. We are actually not. I did not know anything about those 3. That was just off the cuff question. I really like Oganowski too. And when you looked at the stat sheet at the end of the night, the guy's got like 9 points in 4 games in that tournament, and they were in games that were close. He wasn't putting up numbers when the games were blowout. He was involved. Also had 2 shootout goals back to back in the same game, if you remember right, against Team Blue. Like he went out, buried, and then he got his number called again it was tied after the round robin of the shootout, or the first couple shooters. They put him out a second time, and he pulled a John Taves and goes out and scores again right in front of me. And I was like, this guy's got some skill. So that's a pretty good evaluation. I had him ranked a little bit higher too. And I also like the Boschman kid personally. Maybe it's just because of the genetics. There was a guy that was ranked a little bit lower and starting to creep up the board a little bit. But, I'm going to play Francois Boschman's genetics all day. If he's around in the 5th round or somewhere in that 5-6, sure, I have no problem with investing capital on him there and thinking, okay, the genetics and the body, and he has some skill. He just needs to fill out a little bit. I do like Boschman a lot. Oganowski and Matty Butler, I've spoke about Matty Butler a million times over. If they have, you have Frechette ranked above him. If you're going to have Frechette ranked here, I think Butler should at least be in that same area that he goes, because they're very, very similar players. They're smart. They're a little bit undersized, but they're both have really good IQs. And I like, those 2 guys there would be kind of a comparable of each other. If you're going to knock Butler on size. Frechette is about the same size, really. So, but yeah, that's Brayden Olafson, guys. Thank you so much for coming on, Brayden. I really, really appreciate this. This is great. Give Puck Preps a follow. Give Brayden a follow on Instagram. Great hockey mind. I think eventually someday he is going to be moving up the hockey ranks because he can evaluate talent as good as anybody that I have been around. And he does write some good articles. So check them out. And I'll put all the links to Puck Preps on our social, and you guys can check out some of the videos. I'm sure you're going to have some stuff upcoming for the 2022 draft, and just give us a little tag or whatever, and we'll love to share your stuff, Brayden. Again, thank you very much, brother.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on. And it is always a really, really enjoyable time coming to talk to these guys with you.
How far up in the nosebleeds are you at Harbor Station tonight?
I think I'm on the second concourse within the first 4. I got work tickets, so we're okay. Sponsors.
Nice. I figured you'd be front row center. Right? You could even get the sweat hitting you from the player.
That's like sitting front row at a movie, I think.
All right, brother. You enjoy the game.
Okay.
Enjoy the game, and we'll fire that stuff in social. All righty, guys. Awesome. Take it easy. Have a great night.
Thanks, Andrew. See ya.
See you, buddy.